Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our prayer meeting this week. I'm so glad that we can be together and we can worship together tonight. And to start this worship time together, we're going to start by singing, "What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms." So let's sing that together this evening. Lord of all, I depend on you. I call out to you again and again. So Pastor Charmaine is going to lead us in that one this evening.
Oh,
I'm excited to share a little with you tonight from God's Word. A while back, I was working through a devotional, and during one of my personal devotions, I came across a story in the Old Testament. It was a great encouragement to me, and I believe as though it may be for you as well. In the book of Judges, there were many who were sent to lead and deliver the people of Israel. The part of this narrative that I want to focus on in particular is found in Judges 3, verse 31. And in this verse, we learn about a man named Shamgar. This part of the story is only one verse, that's all. There's not much to it. But if you dig a little deeper into this verse, we are able to learn so much about him and his character, and also about God and who he is. So this verse says that after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 of the Philistines with an ox goad, and he also saved Israel. So simply from reading this verse, we learn that he was the son of Anath, he killed 600 of the Philistines, and he was one of the leaders who rescued Israel. But when we look a little further into this verse, there are a few more things to note. He took on 600 Philistines and saved Israel. However, there were a few things in his life that may have caused him to question, why would God use me? He didn't seem to be the typical guy to do the job at hand. Firstly, he was a farmer. He was a farmer who was chosen to lead Israel, a farmer against an army of 600 men. Did he have the knowledge to go about completing this task? Did he have the right tools to complete this task? Not only to complete this task, but to lead people to victory. Because to complete a task such as this, on our own, by our own strength, I would have doubts. So I wonder, if I was him, would I have asked if I was really the right choice for this job? To be on your own against an army, I would be fearful. I would possibly doubt my abilities. Secondly, if we read this verse again, we notice his choice of defense. Not only was he one man against 600 others, but he was also one man without much defense. It notes that he had an ox goad, and with some looking into even a quick search, you will discover very quickly that this is a tool used for livestock. It is used to guide them, to round them up. So he didn't have some fancy weapon. He didn't borrow what someone else had to defend himself and conquer. This verse doesn't tell us that he searched elsewhere to prepare for this battle to ensure that he had the right tools at hand to complete this task. He used his tool that was used to guide livestock, and that's all. But regardless of who he was or what he had, he took it and offered it to God. Regardless of the fact that he was a farmer and his only defense was a farming tool, he was willing to say yes to God. So I want to note a few points about this short story. First of all, he offered his willingness to God. Even though he may have felt small, unable, incapable compared to everyone else that God could have possibly called to do this task, when he was picked, he said yes. He took what he had and he used it. I can imagine how hard this could have been. I can imagine that if I was in this place, it would be difficult to find the determination even to move forward in this task when you feel so unable to do so. It would be a time of asking so many questions and wondering, how is this even possible? Of course I can't do that. But maybe lacking the motivation to say yes, to get up and to move. Amongst all of these things he may have felt, he said yes anyhow. Secondly, he also had faith that God would take what he had and use it for good. Even though to him it may have seemed like it wasn't able to do any good, maybe it seemed like it wasn't enough and couldn't possibly be used by God, he offered it to God anyhow. That is a big step of faith. He didn't know if what he had was sufficient for the job. He didn't know if the task, he wouldn't know until the task had been completed if he was victorious or not. But he did have faith in God, and that was sufficient. It wasn't a shiny shield ready for battle or another type of defense. It was his faith in God that he could take what he had, and that made him usable for God's glory. And thirdly, he didn't keep his focus on what he didn't have. This verse doesn't tell us that he may have questioned his ability, but it is possible. And if we find ourselves in this situation, we possibly could have too. But we do know he didn't let the thought of what he didn't have keep him from moving forward. He could have simply sat and focused on his inabilities, his shortcomings, the weapons that he didn't have present for the task. He could have let those thoughts and doubts keep him from doing what he was called to do. If I was him in this situation, I probably would have made up a ton of excuses as to why I couldn't do the job. I don't have the right weapon. There are lots of others that could do this job way better than I could. But he went for it anyhow, and God used that willingness and faith that he had in a mighty way. So tonight, I don't know where you are in your journey with God. You may feel as though God is leading you in a new direction. Maybe God is calling you to a task, to do something that you may feel unqualified for. You may feel doubts. You may feel as though you're not the best fit. You may be thinking, why would God pick me when there are many more that could be a better fit for this job? You may be feeling as though you are not capable of doing this job to the best of your ability. I know I have found myself here many times, feeling like maybe God could easily use someone else, and sometimes finding myself doubting my own abilities and gifts, feeling as though they aren't enough for the place that I've been called. And maybe you felt like that for a while. Or for some, we've been in this season of isolation and distancing now for months. Our daily lives, as we once knew them, have come to a pause. And maybe you feel tired, alone, exhausted. Maybe you feel that you are unable to go right now where God is leading you in this season. Maybe you feel like what you have in this season that you find yourself isn't enough. In this season, I found myself taking in a lot of social media. And there's so much time on our hands, which means we have even more time than before to take in social media. And I've spent time and time again scrolling through my phone. And maybe you find yourself there too, but maybe you also find yourself battling with comparison. Comparing yourself, your abilities to what you see online. But be assured, wherever you find yourself, that God desires to use you, and he called you just as you are. And he can use just what you have for his kingdom. God has called you, your gifts, who you are, your character, for that particular task, for a purpose. There is a reason that he specifically called you and picked you to complete this task. So I encourage you that wherever it is that God is leading you in your next steps, in your calling, to offer your willingness. It is amazing to see what God can do when you simply say yes to his leading and let him lead the rest of the way. Even though we may go through times of doubt and feel like where he's leading us is just too big for us to handle, remember that you aren't going alone. And we read that Shamgar was one man facing an army of 600. But with God, he was more than able to conquer. So wherever you find yourself headed, you're not going alone. And when you go, use the abilities that God has given you. Have faith that God can take what you have and use what you have. For my devotion I did a while back, a quote has stuck with me for a long time. It said that God's hand is never limited by what we have in ours. On our own, they may not be much, but when God is in control, what we have is more than enough. For Shamgar, his tool wasn't much, and it doesn't seem like much for us today. But he offered it anyhow, and it was used to conquer an army of 600. So God is able to take what you have, offer them to the Lord. I'm going to invite the band back. And although we may feel as though we aren't equipped for the job, I just want to encourage you that he is enough, he is powerful, he is with us, He is able to meet us right where we are and use you just as you are. He is more than able, and we may not know every detail. We just have to know that God knows exactly what He's doing. So I'm going to finish off in prayer this evening. God, I just thank you for this time, and I thank you that you are so good. I thank you that with you all things are possible, and you are the way maker. I thank you that you call us and you lead us so perfectly. And I pray, Father, that as you lead us, we will be willing to go and we will be willing to say yes. That we would be able to say yes, even though there's so many unknowns and we may not know what to expect or what we're facing, Father. But I also pray that we will be willing to listen and to hear your voice as you lead us. And God, I just thank you for the opportunity to follow your leading, and I pray that you will be with us, and I thank you for this time that we have together. In your name I pray. Amen. We're going to end off our service this evening. We're going to sing He is Our Peace. And as God's leading you, wherever He's leading you, wherever you find yourself, I pray that He will give you peace as you're led into unknowns, maybe uncertainty, and as you feel as though maybe you're not enough or what you have to offer isn't enough. I pray that He will give you peace and confidence right where you are. So let's sing that.